had many of us identifying with Africa, with the liberation struggles in Africa. And I had a tendency to go to East Africa because the Organization of African Unity's Liberation Committee was based in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. And so I had to do a little research. So my birth name, last name, was McWhorter. Now a lot of black people, they call that name the slave name. But what actually had happened is my great-great-grandfather had changed the spelling of the name, so it's a freedom name. It's not a slave name. So the meaning of the name, McWhorter, is the son of word. So I had to translate it into Ibn al-Kalimat. Then question the first name. So I said, well, I'm a teacher. I am a servant of the people. And so we took the name Abdul Hakimu, which stands for the servant of knowledge. So you're listening this morning to the servant of knowledge, the son of word. And that word is freedom. Now, let's go back to yesterday when we read the objective of this school. Let's remind ourselves. The overall objective of this school is to meet the opportunities of the present with increased levels of consciousness, organization, and coordinated collective action. Okay, let's break that down a little bit. Consciousness, how we think, what we know, how we talk and communicate, and also how we can debate. See, a lot of times people, when they think they know something and they get confronted with the boss or the media, and people start interviewing you, and then you come up mute. You ain't got nothing to say. We have to be able to debate, to confront ideas that are against us with ideas that are for us. That's what consciousness means. Okay, then coordinated collective action. Action, what we do. Not just what we say or think, what we do. Collective, our workplace committees, our assemblies, and coordinated. That's why we're here right now. This is the whole region, to coordinate our activities. And most of all, this school is about a higher level, increased level. Now we have to really think about that. What you came here with was one level. You got to think about what you're leaving with. Are you trying to get to the next level? Because the level you came in here with wasn't enough. That's why we had a school. How can you raise the level? I'm talking to everybody in here. People over there in the corner, anybody on their telephone. This is about all of us. Okay, slide. Now, critical in our thinking are two concepts. One is strategy, and one is tactics. Now, strategy represents goals, represents where we're trying to get to. And tactics help us think about how we're going to do that, what steps we take. Everybody knows the slogan, 1,000-mile journey. Let's assume you know where you're going. The goal begins with a single step. But also remember, there's a second step, and a third step, and a fourth step. Now, this slide gives an example. The strategy is to take the river. The tactics is to use the boat. Now, the boat might leak. You might have to jump out of the boat. So if you're in a body of water, you got to also have a second tactic, which might be swimming. You know, so one strategy, many tactics. Now, what we're talking about is class struggle unionism. And we'll get to that, but keep that in mind. Now, when we talk about class, I want to talk about consciousness for a moment. First, we begin with me consciousness. Everybody in here is an individual. Everybody in here has your own health concerns. Everybody in here has their own life to be concerned with. If you're not paying attention to me consciousness, you're in trouble. Go to the doctor. You better be thinking about yourself and have a conversation with the doctor. You have to have me consciousness. But one of the things we're talking about at this school is we consciousness. Your family, your workplace committee, your neighbors. There are these social groups that you're involved in, the network that you're involved in. That's the we consciousness. But this school is trying to raise us to the higher level. What is that higher level? For us, it's class consciousness. Not just your industry, not just your workplace, all of the workers. Even the ones don't even know they're in the working class. You know, your mind might be somewhere else, but your ass is in the working class. So when we talk about strategy at this school, we're talking about strategy for the class. See, that's a bold move. You all aren't supposed to be intelligent enough to even think that way. The boss, this is something really deep. The bosses, the capitalists, intend to rule forever. They ain't playing. Anybody playing is us. So we have to begin to think at a same level to confront the enemy that we face. Now, they done set it up so you all aren't supposed to do that. You know what I mean? First of all, you're not even supposed to like reading. You know, many of you don't even want to watch the news. You want to watch all that bullshit they have on TV. So we have to think about how do we raise the level of our consciousness to our class so we can actually engage in the struggle that is before us. Slide. Okay, now, Martin Luther King is key. We all know this. He's key to the social justice, especially in the South. Now, the long-term context for strategy requires post-capitalist thinking toward a vision of the future. Now, long-term strategy. Here we're talking decades. You know, a lot of people have the wrong idea about time and strategy. I know you all don't think this, but I'm 80 years old. I remember when Emmett Till was killed in 1955. He's from Chicago, I'm from Chicago. And I'm in high school. And when they confessed, now check this out, they had the trial, and after the trial, the people who murdered Emmett Till confessed and wrote an article in Saturday Evening Post and told it, and we read that article. And here we are, high school kids sitting on the front porch of my aunt's house talking about building an army to go take care of that shit. It's 1955. We're still trying to build that army. That's what you all are. You're part of building the army. We thought we knew what the army was. Now I know what the army is. It's a class-conscious, abolitionist working class. Yes. That's the army we're trying to build. So when we talk about strategy and cadre development, we're talking about the me, the we, and the class. Now I'm giving you all some sound bites. You better write it down and think about it. Tell your comrades and your people about it. You know, in other words, this school has you as students of the school. But as soon as you walk out that door, you all have to become teachers.
Right.
Don't just listen and then say, oh, well, that was nice. There's a responsibility attached to this. We ain't playing. This is all the way real.
100.
Post-capitalist thinking. First of all, you can't get post-capitalist until you know what capitalism is. A lot of people think they have some money in their pocket and they're capitalists. You know, without thinking about it, if you got money in your pocket, somebody else is going to put their hand in there and get that money. Might even be for a cup of coffee. Capitalism is about another word called commodification. What that means is a commodity is something that is bought and sold. Capitalism turns everything into a commodity. They turn water into a commodity. Now you go back 30 or 40 or 50 years, people wouldn't even believe it. You got to pay for a bottle of water. You could go to the stream and get some water back in the day. Air is going to be a commodity. They turned everything, they turned your ass into a commodity when you were a slave. And now they've got what? They've got our working power, our ability to go to work. That's a commodity every hour. You negotiate, they pay you so much for that hour. And that's how they get their profits. So the commodification of our time is a basis on which they get their profits. That's what we were talking about when we had Friday night about the strike. The withdrawal of that cuts their ability to extract profits from our exploitation. Vision of the future. They got us thinking about all the science fiction is about monsters and machines and all kind of evil things, you know. And so we're only supposed to be afraid of the future. We've got to have our own vision of the future. What we're fighting for. The ability to actually see the fact that life can be worth living. Life can be good. We can solve these problems. These so-called insurmountable problems. Increased levels of consciousness, coordinated collective action. Slide. Okay. Now what do we face? We've got to be real about this. Let's take climate change. First of all, it's already happening. In other words, the planet now is going to change our ability to live on it. Right now, all of the coastlines have basically been filled in. People are building high-rise buildings on the ocean. That's over. That's not going to be where people can live. Now the capitalists, this is really deep. You follow all the main capitalists, they're investing in spaceships and shit. They're talking about this planet as yesterday. We are all collateral damage. That's how they see the world. It's already happening with the environment. Racist, savage society. It's so bad, it's hard to even talk about it. You know, because when you talk about it, you know, according to DeSantis, you make white people feel bad. You know, and that's against the law. You know, it's deep. You know, I mean, this is really, this is almost science fiction. I'm just trying to tell everybody what's happening. You already know what I'm talking about. Class polarity. I mean, we used to know the words millionaire. That was an abstraction. Now we're talking about billionaires. During the pandemic, everybody was going down, the millionaires were becoming billionaires. But see, the system want to call them runaways. That's the slave owners' approach. We call them freedom seekers. One of my family members cut out from Kentucky and went to Canada. His father purchased 16 family members out of slavery. They all trying to get free. One cut out, one able to get some money and buy. The grandsons actually joined the Union Army and fought. Armed struggle. That's what the Civil War was about. Different tactics to get free. So we know we're trying to build a working class movement in the goddamn 24 election process. What are the issues? Middle East war. Immigration. Our brothers and sisters all over the world are being demonized because of the way the capitalist system has organized itself. And we enter into that process and take their point of view. The Supreme Court. I don't even have to say anything about that. Strike waves. That's us. Union drives. That's us. Extreme weather. You know, it's on us. Abortion battles. You know, these are the issues that are going to be debated. Now I want you to take something else out of your packet. The Workers' Power Program.
The 9 points.
Now this Workers' Power Program has 9 points. Are you ready, Ben? Now, as you look at these 9 points, first question is, why did we develop this? We developed this because we wanted to begin to think as a class. So the rights of each of the 9 points, those rights are about what we believe are our rights. We're not asking anybody to approve those rights. That's our starting point. But we know everybody, particularly the rulers, do not agree with us. Their structure is against those rights. So underneath every right, you see different struggles. Those are just suggestions.
There's more here.
You know what struggles make sense in your workplace, in your city, toward democracy or social justice, or health, or housing, or police brutality, safety. People are too busy to do what everybody knows needs to be done. What we often leave out is our own education. In other words, how can we have a higher level of consciousness if we don't participate in education? See, it used to be, in the black community anyway, reading was understood to be a very special activity. In fact, in churches, there was always the reader who could read the good book. My father was a reader in our community in Chicago, steelworker, who read letters being sent from the south to the north because the people who were getting the letter didn't know how to read. And then they would dictate a response, and he would write it down and send it back. And I don't know who was reading it back there. But today they got us reading, I don't know what you call that, social media, tiny little sound bites that disappear in our phones. We don't write letters anymore. So I want to know how many people here actually spend at least 1 hour a week doing study See, that's a crisis. There are few hands, everybody's hand ain't going up. See, that's a pockmark. That's a weakness. I know a capitalist get up every morning, reads the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post.
Right. Subscribe to all of them.
How you gonna go up against them, you ignorant? Like the brother said yesterday, you don't even know the last name of squirrels. You know. Yeah.
I want to kind of maybe give a different idea of this, or maybe a different thought to this panel. During the 40s, 50s, and 60s, the most educated African Americans in this country were in the North, particularly in Detroit, Ohio, Michigan area. And the reason being is because they had union jobs, and there was a lot of African Americans who were employed on assembly lines, which were represented by a union which had decent wages, and so it pushed them up into the middle class. Being that they were in the middle class, they could afford better education for their children. Well, one thing I know is that when you're of a middle class home, then you're exposed to more culture. You have a better education because 9 times out of 10 you're going to live in a community where they're going to force or petition for better education in the schools in the community, and you have a shot at least having a additional education through college, trade school, things of that nature. And I really believe that those are the things that are kind of a byproduct of unionism. I really believe that. So a lot of times my push for unionism is also a push for the other things that are posted throughout the room. Because a major part of our power and our strength lies in our ability to galvanize campaigns to get things done. You know, the resistance to Roe versus Wade would never have been as great without unions. Even though we failed in some attribute, but that goes back to just kind of sometimes between the early 70s or sometime after the early 70s, we kind of took our hand off the plow about a lot of things.
Okay.
You know, the second that we passed the Civil Rights Act, they began to repeal it slowly but surely. And we were not keeping a close enough watch on it to understand that every attack on it, no matter how small, no matter how insignificant that change was, it was a threat to the entire bill, which is now kind of just a shell that has been hollowed out.
Okay. Good point. Unions. But we can't limit ourselves to single thinking. There are 2 other concepts I think that are important here. One is self-determination. At the me level, at the we level, and at the class level. We're talking about a culture of resistance. That's a responsibility on everybody in this room. If you're in a union, cool. If you're not, you still got the responsibility. Also, what we're talking about here is culture. Culture is a way of life. It's how you live every day. So the Civil Rights Movement and the Black Liberation Movement got reading out of culture, the church, and other organizations. It was clear to black people that education was tied to liberation. Not just if you went to school, because everybody here knows, a lot of people graduate from college, they get a job, they have to be re-educated.
That's right.
Because college doesn't teach you everything you need to know. That's the truth. So we have to take our responsibility out of this school to achieve greater levels of political education. That means we got to read.
That's right.
That means we have to talk to each other about what we read. You can't just read by yourself. And you have to be able to break it down. Talk about it. You know, if you can't write it down, if you can't talk about it, you don't know it. A lot of times people think they know something, then when it's time to say it, you can't say it. And I've heard people many times say, I know it, but I just can't say it. Well, if you can't say it, you don't know it. And particularly, you can't say it unless you can say it to somebody that doesn't agree with you. And if it's a fellow worker, do it with respect. Because the person that disagrees with you today might be the very person who you need to agree with you next week.
That's right.
It's like black people used to walk down the street. You see another black person you didn't even know. You would go by them and say, cool, you know, hey, why? Because you know you might need each other the next day. You know, that's how rough it was. That's how we have to deal in the working class. Everybody in your shop, everybody in your industry, everybody in your town is an ally, a potential ally. Go ahead. Wait a minute.
Hello? Yeah, definitely education is very important, especially our own education. That's, I don't work for CWA, but that's why they gave me 150 copies of Runaway Inequality that I put out on the literature table out there to bring to y'all to just take for yourself or take a couple copies for friends and family, anyone you know. And they hand them out to everyone, just free copies, just to get some education out there so people know what's going on. So yeah, help yourself. I still got I think 80 copies. Take some out there on the table.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Give that brother a hand. Okay, now the next thing coming out of this school is what are we going to do? This is very important. What are we going to do? Now here's what we want you to think about. What happens on January the 15th? Anybody know?
King Day.
Martin Luther King Day. Now, you know how holidays go. You know, people stop thinking about what the meaning of it is. They just want to know they don't have to go to work. You know, maybe get some barbecue. That's the summertime anyway. I don't know what y'all do down here. You know, in January. It might just be warm. I don't know. I'm in Chicago. So we're wearing coats and we ain't thinking about being outside. We're talking about coordinated, collected action about Martin Luther King Day. Turning that day into a day of struggle. Not a day of celebrating the past. Hell, if he was here right now, he'd be talking about struggle. How come we ain't talking about struggle? We listen to Fruit of Labor, everybody like it, but they're talking about struggle, a culture of resistance. So this exercise we just did about the 9 points. First of all, it was fun. Everybody enjoyed it, didn't you? Good. Democracy, you know. But we're using that as instruction. So a committee has been formed. The coordinating committee is formed. And we're going to do a lot of thought about how to synthesize your votes, your concerns, into a plan for Martin Luther King Day. Now, what I want to know right now is how many people are prepared to get down on Martin Luther King Day this year. How many? Let me see your hand. Look around the room, everybody. Keep your hand up. Look around the room. We're going to report on every local assembly. You can put them down now. On every local assembly to each of you to see who stood by their word. I mean, no bullshit. you know, I know it's Sunday, and I'm sorry I have to talk like this, but I'm trying to say something that you understand.
Be real.
You know what I mean? Because we're talking about doing something, coordinated, collective action. Martin Luther King Day. Now, these pieces of paper y'all turned in are going to be summed up. Now, is everybody on the SWA activist list? Do you get email? Anybody not get emails? Okay, we need to, where's Ben? We need to make sure everybody is hooked up, because there's some people not getting our emails. Okay.
Ben?
Three people that need to be on the list.
Cool, we'll get you, if everyone signed in, we'll get everybody and registered, we'll get you added to the various lists.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do something.
Now, part of that program of political education is directly tied to two things. First, SWA has a website. How many people have been to the website of SWA? Okay, good. Everybody hasn't raised their hand, so everybody didn't raise their hand. Go to the website. Because there are documents on the website, there are videos on the website. And it's way more interesting than television. I ain't saying that just because I'm in it. But that's also, you know, an ad. Second thing is, each local assembly has a responsibility of helping to study your industries and your local situation. Now here's the goal of that political education. Every local assembly should develop about 5 to 10 points that everybody in the assembly should be able to speak to in every circumstance. First, you got to talk about what is the industry you work in? How many people work there? What is its role in the economy? Who owns a damn company? What are the other major industries in the town? In other words, clarity, and that has to be repeated over and over. Even in the local assembly meetings, individuals should be asked to run it. I'm talking about 3 to 5 minutes. Raise the level of consciousness, the level of understanding. I mean, those of you who've ever traveled to a progressive country, you go to a workplace or a school or whatever, somebody stands up and runs it. Tell us, what are you raising, you nodding, what are you, give that brother a mic.
Yeah, I was just saying, I was nodding because I know what you're saying. So they, a lot of places they'll have their chants or they'll have their mission statement, but it'll be known and to be clear. They'll have it on the walls, they'll say it before they start, before they end the day, and you would know that's at least one point or guide that they go by and govern themselves with.
So, you think that's something we ought to do?
Absolutely.
Say more about that.
I mean, even personally, like some people put stickies on their window, they might write it in the mirror in the morning. It's a personal thing that kind of reminds you of why you're doing what you're doing every day.
Yeah.
Personal goal.
See, this is part of taking responsibility. A lot of times people don't have a definition of leadership. They think leadership is out front. That's not real leadership. Real leadership is producing more and more leaders. That's real leadership. I went to China once, and it was a delegation from the United States. Everybody wasn't as disciplined as they should have been, but they thought the person who was at the front desk of the hotel wearing the suit was the head man. So everybody was deferring to that person. And so when we sat down and had a meeting with the Chinese Communist Party, the person who stood up that was the head of the party in the hotel was the dude who was cleaning up, who was busting the tables. You know, and people weren't really being all that deferential to him. It was shocking to think that somebody in a low status job, from their perspective, could be the lead political person in the organization. So that's what we need to think about. Leadership is the ability to facilitate more leaders. That's what everybody else in here, that's a teacher. Teacher is the one that educates so that other people can do. Now I see a lot of people shaking their heads, but when we have the next school, what would it be like if everybody in here brought 5 people? If we have 100 and some people here this time, I know I'm putting a little pressure on Ben. What if we had 500 people? That's good trouble.
I'm shaking his head. No.
I mean, well, think about it. Why can't we do that? Why don't we have the power to do that?
We have the power.
You could go home and forget about the school. You could go home and say the rest of these people are ignorant and are not interested, etc. Or you could think differently. You could say it's possible for us to win. And if we're going to win, it requires what? Higher level of consciousness, coordinated collective action. Higher levels of consciousness, coordinated collective action. Repeat after me. Higher levels of consciousness, coordinated collective action. Come on now. Higher levels of consciousness, coordinated collective action. Higher levels of consciousness, coordinated collective action. I know somebody in here believes it. Well, we're getting close to that time. Anybody else got something to say? Go ahead.
Good morning. It's on.
It's on. Go ahead. Talk to us.
Oh, okay. My question is, do you think it's possible, because I heard some things yesterday about what's happening in our workplace, you know, what was happening in the workplace where, you know, the people were late 1 minute and got docked an hour. You'd like to have somebody who's really into labor relation, like a labor relation lawyer, who can come and, you know, listen to some of the complaints and we can find out whether some of the things are legal and not legal. But some of the stuff don't sound like it's legal to me. So, you know, I'm not a lawyer, so we might need to reach out to somebody, you know, in a higher standard of, you know, a law. And, you know, kind of like listening and give us some information.
Who would like to respond to that?
Yeah, I was at the TDU convention for the first time. I'm not a Teamster, long short. And they had a Ask the Experts panel with 5 or 6 lawyers. You know, they have a big membership. And it was like speed dating. You go from table to table with your urgent question. It was quite helpful.
A contract is better than a promise. So we got a written document that guides our activity in most cases. But when we get in the gray areas, that's why we defer to legal matters to the lawyers. So I think there's a natural progression in how we approach that kind of issue.
Yeah, you know something, too often,
Wait a minute.
I think I can speak without that.
No, they can't hear you.
Can y'all hear me? No. Thank you. Too often, really. We gotta look at this. The bosses, capitalists, they break the law every day. It's everyday people that make history, not lawyers, not the legal thinkers, not the experts. It's everyday working people. I'll never forget in North Carolina, when we wanted those Confederate statues down in North Carolina, they came down. The people put ropes on them. We took them down. We didn't have to pass a law to make sure those Confederate statues came down. So let's keep in mind that everyday working people make history, and there's oftentimes too much dependence upon lawyers. We're smart, just as smart as they are. And, in the end of the day, all things said and done, it's everyday workers that make history, not the lawyers, not the experts, it's us.
Okay, everybody, we're reaching one more.
What was the chant that you said about?
Wait a minute.
5 minutes ago?
Here.
Higher levels of consciousness. Coordinated.
Oh, the question. I'm finna start rapping in a minute. No, I asked you. We want to know what was the chant that was said a few minutes ago.
Okay, somebody say it.
Higher consciousness, coordinated collective action. Higher levels of consciousness, coordinated collective action.
Higher level of consciousness, coordinated collective action.
Higher levels of consciousness, coordinated collective action.
Okay.
Get it tattooed on.
The only thing I keep going through my mind is that with that chant, continually saying it, I think we left out something that's vital, and that's accountability. Because without that, we're accountable to each other. We're accountable to our families. We're accountable to our employers. We're accountable to these unions. Because if we're not going to be holding ourselves accountable and holding each other accountable, what good is it?
That's right. Now, there was an old slogan, "Free by 63." Now, we didn't quite get free in 63, but it guided people. But I want to add something to that. Let's make the end of the school a new beginning. A new beginning for a class-conscious, abolitionist, working-class movement. Can I get an amen on that? How many people feel good about this school? How many people are going to be back the next time we have a school? How many people are going to get down on Martin Luther King Day, January 15th? I'm going to see you all later.